Next up is the idea of this tool, the concept of input and output goals. You should be familiar with this. We kind of covered this at evaluation time, and cool. All right, input and output goals. Before I talk about this tool, I actually need to explain why it exists and why it's actually the best thing for the people of our generation. As you know, I very badly want this, and honestly, I'm kind of there. I view our jobs here, working at Midtown, as truthfully the best job in the world to have. I really do feel that way. Typically, you think about working for Google if you're talking about the best job in the world to have. For us, and really the way the people that work there talk about it is the Clemson football program. They talk about as that's the greatest place to work. And when you think about why those places are so desirable to work at, it's not because everyone is highly paid there. I mean, some are, but not everyone. The majority of the people actually are not. And it's not because the work is light. The people of those organizations work their tail off. And knowing us, knowing the desire that we have to train and develop and invest in our staff, to provide a pleasant workspace experience, doing work that matters so much to us with people that I think are just amazing, I really do believe this is the best place in the world to work. With that, kind of like what Adam was saying last night, we're never comfortable with the status quo. We want to keep making things better and better. And one big initiative for working here is we want, without a shadow of a doubt, that our employees will be able to tell themselves, I'm doing a great job here, or I know I'm not doing a great job here, and here's why or why not. We talked about this during our evals in April, but I just think that's a huge thing. It's such an awful feeling to be uncertain if I'm doing a great job or not. I did an HR training at the University of South Carolina in the HR department, and they talked a lot about the millennial generation, Generation Y, and in 2019, in our country will be the first year where that generation, our generation, will take over 50% of the workforce in our country. It'll be the majority generation represented in the workforce in America. And so they talked a lot about the ramifications of it and what needs to be adapted in order to accommodate for this idea, or really push back against the results that we've seen of growing up in this information age. I remember growing up myself. I kind of was on the beginning end of the millennial generation, so I can remember the date and time where our household got high-speed internet. And before that, it was like, if you wanted to look something up and learn something, you went to the bookshelf of the Encyclopedia Britannica, and you went to the letter that started with that topic, and you had to open it up and find the page and then read the article. And I was like, I'm just not going to open this book. I'll just watch some TV instead. But when we started, the information technology age, at a moment's notice, we get the information immediately. So I can only imagine what it would be like if I grew up at a time where I never knew anything different. Like literally the way I find out the weather is, I don't even touch anything. It's, hey Siri, what's the weather look like today? And so for the people that grew up in this age, there will be major ramifications as a result of it. And we have so much data, because this will be from, depending on what source you're using, it could be as early as 77 to 83, all the way to the 2000s. And now we're seeing so much data from this generation, and we're seeing the ramifications because of it. And so I wanted to share a few things from that training that I thought was really interesting about millennials, and explain how these tools will be helpful to us. So the first thing that they said about millennials was the people of our generation are not necessarily tech savvy. We're actually just tech dependent. We don't know how technology actually works, only that we can't live without it. It's kind of pegged me, on the nose. If I time traveled, like if I went back in time tonight to like the 20s. I believe that I would actually make no difference whatsoever. So I'd see, a guy, he's got an old telephone he's talking into. I go up to him and say, hey, eventually, they're gonna carry telephones right in your pocket. And he said, oh, how do they do it? I don't know, man. I don't know how they do it. I think it's like satellites, like made out of metal. They go up in the air, they just float when they're high enough. I don't know if you guys are doing that sort of thing. Don't forget I even mentioned it, actually. And I don't even think I could prove I'm from the future. It's like they'd want something. They'd be like, who's the next president? I don't know, man. Like Abraham Lincoln, y'all are gonna love that guy. I don't know if they think I'm from the past. I'd get stuck there. Like I just have to take a normal job at waiting tables in the 20s. I'd be going back in time and do slightly worse than I'm doing now. Because our generation does not understand how our technology works, only that we're tech dependent. Next point, Generation Y has a feeling of entitlement. Generation Y also often has a feeling of entitlement. So I had a resident launch, and I had an interesting interaction with them. I was talking to them about office hours, and they said that they wanted to do something outside of the office on a weekly basis using, work time. And I said, man, that sounds really awesome, really cool idea, love your heart behind it, but you're going to need to run that by your boss because they're in charge of how you spend your work time. And he didn't like that. I said, hey, just so you know, I think we could actually work it out, but I can't give you approval. Your boss needs to be the one that you talk to about that because he's the one who says if he needs you during that time, during the workday, he gets to make that call. The resident then said he thought that this could be a job where God was his boss and that he could come and go as he pleases. Guys, I'm kind of quoting him on this. I asked, where did you get that idea from? Did someone tell you that about working here? And he said no. And I thought that was just wild. I told him what he's describing that he wants is kind of a role in an organization that he's carrying a tremendous amount of weight, that he's leading out, and he's been there for 20 years. He's a veteran, and what he's actually in is an entry-level internship position, and felt entitled with these expectations by himself without anybody needing to tell him. So another thing we need to push back. Generation Y often has a feeling of entitlement. Lastly, Generation Y loves instant gratification. We are notorious for not being able to wait for things or wait in line, especially for getting coffee, apparently. That was on the slide that they told me about. I don't drink coffee, so don't know if that's true or not. They talked a good bit about this and how it shows up with, students at USC and employees in the workplace and needing constant feedback. And we've seen that in our workplace as well. And to be honest with you, it makes sense. I mean, it's if I wanted to find a piece of information, I was able to get that immediately with almost little to no effort. So I can't imagine how strong it would be for people who grew up with that access every single day of their life and knew no difference. So the dependence of instant feedback, this actually poses a challenge for me and my initiative of making this the best place in the world to work. This is something that I need to be mindful of, that we're pushing back or adapting with. So you can understand now the focus of the tool of the input and output goals. We talked about it at eval time. This is your ability to know I'm doing exactly what my boss told me to be doing, and I know I'm doing a great job because I'm hitting my input goals. The output goals, God is in charge of those. Those are results that we hope to see, but we are in charge of the inputs. So in your notebook, what I have after this session is your personalized input and output goals that I want you to take a look at. This is what we covered at eval time. The purpose of those, no, not that yet. That's going to be the questionnaire. Don't worry. Do I have a slide for it after that? Okay, cool. The purpose of those is you'll notice they're bulleted out, and they're not using circles. They're using check boxes. And the purpose of those inputs are literally for you to be able to check them off. Did I accomplish this or did I not? I know I'm doing a great job because I hit all of my inputs, and this is the direction that my boss told me to go down. Or I know I'm not doing a great job. I know what I need to improve because I'm not hitting that stuff. There should be no scenario where you're hitting all your input goals and your boss says you're not meeting my expectations. What that actually reveals is a communication issue, a supervisor issue that we did not give exacting standards and expectations. My job in this moment, my goal in this moment is I want to make sure that all of us stay employed. At the end of the day, all of the stuff we're talking about is in the employee-boss relationship circle. Like Adam said, that is why we're employed by Midtown. It's not because you're a brother and sister in Christ. It's not because you're a member here. You do need to be those things to be on staff, but it's because your job is to accomplish certain things. All of our employment is based on that. If we don't get our job accomplished, we do not stay employed. Like I said, I want all of us to not only stay employed, but excel in our current roles. If something's not a good fit, if you're not thriving in your role, I want you to be the first one to know that. I don't want anybody to have to blindside you and tell you that. I want you to be able to tell yourself that, because I want it to be so clear that you know what needs to be improved upon, and that if there was a change that needed to be made in your role one day, you're actually the first one to explain why. And so that's actually my goal. This isn't a threat. I just wanted to be super clear. It's super hard to get fired at Midtown. And honestly, I think we like it that way. I do not want this to be the type of work environment where people are on eggshells. We care about you more as a human being than a worker and doer of things. That's just the reality. But I just want to be upfront that at the end of the day, because we're in the employee-boss circle, there is an existence where your role, your function of being employed is to accomplish certain things. So that's why we do input and output goals and why that tool even exists. It's just to give you, to serve you well and give you clear expectations. So what I'd like for us to do right now, if you found them already, I'd like for us to review them, like for you to review them and just see how's it going. You are accountable for the inputs. It's been several months. Are we making progress? The list has check boxes. Go ahead and check them off. Which ones can you check off? Which ones can you not check off? Then on the next little page, and RJ, you can do this slide. On the next little page is a little self-review. This is a tool for yourself. You're not turning this in to your supervisor. This is not an official evaluation. We're going to do those in early winter. This is for you and for your benefit. So go ahead and answer these questions and make a plan accordingly to be hitting your input and output goals. I'll give you 7 minutes, and I'll pick up the microphone at 11:40.